Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually start using the machine. And I'm going to show you how to cut an edge cut key. This is sort of like, best case scenario if they have a key that, is, I don't know if that'll get into focus. Probably not. Okay, but this is an SC1. I'm just familiar with it, so you could go through the whole key identification process. But let's say we've looked at a customer's key. This is the customer's key, and we've decided that it is an SC1. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to now cut the key. It's preferable. You don't necessarily have to, but it makes it easier if you take the key off their key ring, because sometimes it gets stuck in the carriage and it just makes it sort of hard. I'm not going to do it this time, but most cases I would recommend, if you're making a lot of keys, take it off. It helps it just to be more accurate, and it's just easier to maneuver. So, okay, so this is your single-sided edge cut key. It is an SC1, so it's this key right here. This key right here is the SC1. We're going to be cutting this. Okay, so first off, this is the carriage. This is not released yet, but what we're going to first do is we're going to put this key on the left side. So the key that you're going to be duplicating, the customer's key, is going to be on this side. Okay, so what we want to do is you want to put it in. You see what I did is I'm using my finger right here to push down because I want to make sure that this is flat against this. You don't want it to be like this or like that, even a minor amount off. So let's say if you tilt it like that, that could mess up the key cut. I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit so you get a better view. Oh, I think that's it. But yeah, so you'll be able to see it. I'm also recording on this side as well, so you'll be able to get a better feel. So this, I'm using my thumb right here. I'm just gonna use that. I'm using my thumb to put it in and then hold it down. So now it's nice and flat. Okay, put this camera down, nice and flat. And I am going to now tighten this. So you turn it clockwise this way to tighten it. So now that's in. You put it all the way up to the shoulder stop. It'll stop because there's a thing on the side that will stop it, and that's the shoulder. So now we put that in. It's flat. It's parallel to the vice grip carriage. Same thing. The key blank now. This is our key blank. It has not been cut yet. Will not go into focus at all. Let's try that. Oh, that's terrible. But we're gonna go ahead. There it is. Took forever. But we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna cut this side. We're gonna cut this key, and we're gonna put it on the right side. Okay, so put that in, and then we're gonna tighten it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to release the carriage by pushing down. Okay, we're pushing down and we're pulling the knob with these two fingers. Pushing down, pulling the knob. So that releases the carriage. Now you see it goes all the way this way. That's it holding in place. Pull the knob, push down, pull the knob, and now we're ready to cut. Now, most important thing, when we're cutting, I'm going to do a little close-up. So most important thing is you'll notice that the edge of the key goes against that tracer right there. Okay? Now, you see that. I can't really zoom in, but you'll see right where the edge of the key is. You want it perfectly flush against the cutter. If it's not perfectly flush, that's where we have to make an adjustment. This is probably the most important part in cutting the key itself, is that we have to make sure that that right there is flush. And I'll show you how to do that. So there's two ways. You can actually do just more of like a visual, sort of visual inspection on it. Hopefully I'm not like blocking the way. But what I'm gonna do first is there's a gap. So there's a tiny gap on this side, and we wanna close that gap as much as possible so that the blade, the key cutter, is right against the edge or the tip of the key. And how we're gonna do that is if there's a gap on this side, key cutter, if there's a gap and we wanna close that gap, we're gonna take the key that we're duplicating, the customer's key. So we're gonna release it. We're gonna move it this way, the estimated amount of the gap. So whatever this gap is, I'm obviously, of course, exaggerating, but let's say if the gap is this big between the key tip and the key blade, we want to move the customer's key that much this way. And that's going to give us enough room for the key to now move closer to the key cutter. So I look at it, I estimate it, it's a tiny, tiny bit. I'm gonna move it over a little bit. Okay, I think I got it. I've noticed that this doesn't feel like it's holding the key tight enough. So I'm gonna tighten this a little bit so that it goes down further. I feel it, you'll know when it's tight when you feel like a tension. If you feel like it just gets stuck, that means that you need to tighten this portion more because it's not holding it as tight as it should be. Okay, so now that I moved it, I'm gonna now move this. I'm taking, let's see, taking my hand right here, okay, and I'm gonna move this closer, okay, so that the key is right against the key cutter. So, and how I can test this, you can look at it visually, but sometimes you won't be able to tell. If I moved it too much, you'll start hearing the key being cut. So you want it perfect. So we're gonna move this slowly, okay? So I'm gonna turn on the key cutter, and I'm gonna turn it on, and I'm gonna move it to the right, and I wanna hear a tiny, tiny bit of the key being cut. Not a lot. It has to be barely touching it. That's when you know it's like perfect where it's at. And I move it in slowly because this key might not be hitting the tracer yet. So I want it where I can hear the sound. Once I hear this cutting sound, it's like I don't know how this, it's like a shearing of metal sound, very lightly. So you want to hear that, and then we're gonna move this key. We're gonna adjust this key after we hear that sound. Okay, so I'm gonna do it right now. It might be a little loud. So that sound right there is, it was a little too much, almost like it sounded like you barely wanted to touch. But once you're there, now the key is perfectly flush against the key and the cutter. So now what we want to do, there's still now a gap on this side. So we move this one too much back, too much this way. So now we want to move this key this way. So I loosen it. I'm pushing down with this finger to keep it parallel, and I'm pushing it forward. Once I push it forward, it's right against the tracer, and now I am tightening it. Now that that's done, that is the setup of the key. After this, it's super easy to do. This is probably the hardest part, is making sure that the key is perfectly lined up with your key that you're cutting against the tracer and the key that you're duplicating against the cutter. It has to be perfect together. And that allows the tracer, once it traces, it will perfectly cut the ridges or cuts on the key. So the setup, most important thing. So just to review really quickly, you put in the customer's key, reset up, you basically put in the customer's key, this side, you put it in. This one, you just put it all the way into the shoulder, so it gets stopped right here. And then you release the carriage, gap on this side, move this one back a little bit, turn on, get the sound that I got it ready, wait till the blade stops, put your thumb against this to put pressure so it doesn't move the carriage when you adjust this key. So released it, push the key forward with this finger right here that's holding it, and now I'm retightening. Perfectly set up ready. Now what you do is, the cutting is easy. This is called a semi-automatic cutter, so you really don't need to put too much pressure on this. You're not pushing it this way that much. You're just sort of applying a little bit of pressure, allowing it to cut. Now, this is important. When we're cutting, we're not just going to allow it to just cut it in one move across. What we want to do is we want to cut it layer by layer by layer, because it allows the cutter to not get stuck. And so we're going to cut layer by layer by layer until the key's cut. But we can do this really quickly. It sounds like it might be, cumbersome and going over it a bunch of times, but it actually is really quick. This is the point. You want to make sure that you have protective goggles on. Because you have all these little metal shavings that can go into your eye. So make sure that you have, clear plastic, it could be glass too, it could be glasses, but they should be worn so that it covers pretty much your entire eye. So once you have that on, what you do is you literally turn this on. You can now control it. Remember, cutting layer by layer. So I just went back and forth, layer by layer, and now you don't hear the cutting sound. You don't hear that cutting sound anymore because it's been fully cut. And that's pretty much it. You've now duplicated a key. You want to check. Well, first off, let's deburr. So you'll notice that the key, probably won't get in focus, but the key, when it's freshly cut, it'll have all these like metal shavings on it. And so we want to clean those metal shavings off of it. And you do that through this deburring, rotating. I forget what it's called, but this allows it to deburr these little shavings. You just turn it on, follow the grooves. I like using the corners. Once you do that, you have deburred the key. You don't have to do too much, but just light enough to be able to get that nice and clean, and hopefully you'll be able to see it once it focuses. And there has to be a better way. But anyways, that's really annoying. But you should be able to get it where it's nice and clean. So anyways, now you have a duplicated key, and what you want to do is, the reason why you want to take it off your customer's keychain is so that you can put the copied key right against the original key, just so you can see if it's like perfect. One of the most important things is the shoulder right here. It has to be the same length. Sometimes there's going to be parts where you have to shave down, so you'll take a file and you'll shave down certain things. This one you probably don't need to, but in the next section I will show you little things on cutting the key and cleaning it up afterwards. So yeah, that's how you cut a single-sided edge cut key. In the next section I will go over sort of like the little things you have to think about when you're cutting the key. It's almost like called like post-processing of a key, just making sure that it is perfect before the customer leaves. So that's it. We'll move on to the little details to make sure a key is perfect.